There is an enemy that has defeated kings, destroyed empires, shattered families, and quietly ruined countless lives. Most people call that enemy temptation. Machiavelli would have called it something else, because temptation, by itself, possesses no power. It cannot force your hand, it cannot command your mind, it cannot make a single decision on your behalf. It merely offers. You choose. Yet for centuries, humanity has blamed temptation for failures that were born from something far more dangerous. Weakness, the inability to govern oneself, the inability to delay pleasure, the inability to look beyond the present moment. That is the true enemy. Imagine placing a chest of gold before two men. One sees opportunity, the other sees responsibility. The treasure has not changed. Only the man has. Now place power before two rulers. One uses it to build a nation. The other uses it to satisfy his vanity. Again, power is not the problem. Character is. Temptation works in exactly the same way. It does not create weakness. It reveals it. That is why history repeatedly tells the same story. Great men rarely fall because an enemy defeats them. More often, they defeat themselves. A brilliant commander abandons discipline for pride. A respected leader sacrifices integrity for admiration. A wealthy merchant risks everything for one reckless desire. To the outside world, it appears that temptation destroyed them, but the truth is more unsettling. The temptation simply uncovered what had been hiding within them all along. Machiavelli observed that every person carries two rulers inside them. One is governed by reason, the other by appetite. Reason speaks quietly. It asks you to wait, to think, to consider tomorrow before acting today. Appetite is louder. It promises immediate satisfaction, immediate revenge, immediate pleasure, immediate recognition. And because it speaks the language of emotion, most people mistake its voice for their own. This is why temptation feels so powerful, not because it controls you, but because it sounds like you. Every impulse whispers, just this once. No one will know. You deserve it. You can regain control tomorrow. Tomorrow rarely comes, because every surrendered temptation makes the next surrender easier. Discipline weakens gradually. Character erodes quietly. Until one day, a person no longer recognizes themselves. What is frightening is that this transformation is almost invisible. No one wakes up intending to destroy their future. They simply choose today's comfort over tomorrow's freedom. Again, and again, and again. Machiavelli understood something modern psychology continues to confirm. Human beings are creatures of habit far more than creatures of intention. Your life is not determined by your greatest ambitions. It is determined by your smallest repeated decisions. The decision to remain silent instead of reacting. The decision to resist instead of indulging. The decision to think instead of impulse. These moments appear insignificant, yet together they become destiny. Perhaps that is why temptation is so misunderstood. People imagine it arrives dramatically, as a grand moral crisis, a life-changing decision. But temptation rarely announces itself. It appears quietly, in a second glance, in unnecessary anger, in endless distraction, in comfort disguised as reward, in excuses that sound perfectly reasonable. Its greatest weapon is not force, it is familiarity. The more often you entertain it, the more normal it becomes. And what becomes normal eventually becomes identity. This is why Machiavelli never believed the strongest person was the one who conquered others. The strongest person was the one who remained unconquered by themselves. Because there is a profound difference between ruling a kingdom and ruling your own desires. The first wins admiration, the second wins freedom. And freedom has always been the rarest form of power. But if temptation is merely the messenger, then who benefits when you surrender to it? That question reveals a far darker truth, because the people who understand desire can often control those who never learn to master it. If temptation cannot control you, why do so many people surrender to it? Machiavelli believed the answer was not found in morality, but in psychology. Every human being carries invisible desires. Some crave pleasure, others crave status. Some hunger for approval, others are consumed by wealth, revenge, or power. The object of temptation changes from person to person, but the mechanism never does. Temptation always begins by identifying what you value most, then offering it without requiring patience. It promises the reward without demanding the discipline. That is why it feels irresistible, not because it is powerful, but because it speaks directly to the part of you that already wants to believe it. This is where the truly dangerous people separate themselves from everyone else. They understand that every person has a price. Not always money. Sometimes it is admiration. Sometimes it is attention. Sometimes it is comfort. Sometimes it is the desperate need to feel important. Find that desire, and you often find the key to influencing their decisions. This is why Machiavelli insisted that before you study politics, you must study human nature. A ruler who understands desire can predict behavior long before it happens. Observe the gambler. He tells himself the next bet will recover every loss. Observe the vain man. He sacrifices wisdom for applause. Observe the ambitious man. He mistakes recognition for purpose. Each believes they are making independent decisions, yet each is quietly following the same master. Desire. Modern psychology calls this emotional decision-making. We convince ourselves that our choices are logical, when in reality, reason often arrives only after the decision has already been made. We invent explanations. We justify impulses. We call indulgence reward. We call avoidance self-care. We call fear being realistic. The mind is remarkably creative when protecting the desires it refuses to question. That is why self-deception is temptation's closest ally. It rarely says, "Do something foolish." Instead, it whispers, "You deserve this. You've earned a break. Everyone else does it. Just one more time." Notice how reasonable those voices sound. Temptation rarely wears the face of danger. It wears the face of permission. That is why intelligent people are not immune to it. Knowledge alone has never produced discipline. History is filled with brilliant minds who understood consequences, yet lacked the strength to resist immediate gratification. Wisdom is not knowing what is right. Wisdom is remaining faithful to it when desire argues otherwise. Machiavelli recognized another truth that most people overlook. The person who cannot govern themselves becomes remarkably easy to govern by others. Advertisers understand it. Politicians understand it. Manipulators understand it. They do not begin by controlling your actions. They begin by controlling your desires. Once they know what you crave, they no longer need force. They simply promise to satisfy it. This is why the undisciplined become predictable. The greedy can always be bought. The vain can always be flattered. The fearful can always be threatened. The lonely can always be seduced by belonging. Every uncontrolled desire creates an opening. Every opening becomes a point of influence, and every point of influence slowly becomes a chain. The tragedy is that most people never notice the chains because they are wrapped in pleasure. They believe they are pursuing freedom, while quietly surrendering it. Freedom is not the ability to satisfy every desire. Freedom is the ability to refuse them, to say no, not because you cannot indulge, but because you choose not to. That is the kind of discipline Machiavelli admired. Not the discipline that seeks admiration, but the discipline that makes manipulation impossible. Because once your desires no longer rule you, Neither can those who seek to exploit them, and that raises an even deeper question. If mastering desire is the foundation of freedom, what becomes of the person who never masters it? The answer is written across history, and it is far more costly than most people imagine. Every temptation carries a price. The tragedy is that the price is almost never paid immediately. If it were, few people would ever surrender. Imagine if every lie instantly destroyed your reputation, if every act of greed immediately emptied your wealth, if every moment of laziness visibly weakened your body. Temptation would lose much of its appeal, but reality operates differently. It rewards you first, then sends the invoice later. This is what makes temptation so dangerous. Its consequences are delayed. And because they are delayed, the mind begins believing there will be none. Machiavelli understood that civilizations do not collapse overnight. Neither do individuals. Decline is almost always gradual. One compromise becomes another. One excuse becomes a habit. One indulgence becomes a lifestyle, until eventually a person wakes to discover that the life they once imagined has quietly disappeared. History offers countless examples. Powerful rulers who could not control their appetites, generals who survived impossible battles, only to be defeated by arrogance, leaders who conquered nations, yet remained slaves to luxury. Their enemies did not destroy them. Success did. Because success often brings comfort, and comfort invites complacency. The moment a person believes they have earned the right to abandon discipline, they begin losing the very qualities that created their success. This is why Machiavelli admired rulers who remained vigilant even in victory. They understood that the greatest threats rarely arrive from outside the kingdom. They emerge from within. The same principle governs every human life. Your greatest danger is rarely failure. It is comfort. Comfort convinces you that one exception cannot hurt. One missed opportunity, one unnecessary purchase, one angry reaction, one more distraction. Each decision seems insignificant, but life is not shaped by isolated choices. It is shaped by accumulated ones. Character is built the same way a mountain is worn down, not by one violent storm, but by countless drops of water. Every surrendered temptation leaves a small mark upon the mind, a mark that says, "Next time will be easier." Eventually. It is. This is why self-control resembles a muscle. It strengthens through resistance. It weakens through neglect. Most people assume discipline is exhausting. Machiavelli would argue the opposite. Indulgence is exhausting, because every uncontrolled desire demands another. Pleasure quickly becomes expectation. Expectation becomes dependence. Dependence becomes identity. The person no longer chooses. They obey. Not another ruler, not another nation, but their own impulses. And there is no harsher prison than the one built inside your own mind. Perhaps that is the greatest illusion temptation ever created. It convinces people they are exercising freedom, while quietly removing it. The man who cannot refuse pleasure believes he is free because no one tells him no. But if he cannot tell himself no, who truly holds the power? The answer is uncomfortable, because the greatest form of slavery has never required chains. It only requires unchecked desire. The ancients understood this. The Stoics spoke of mastering passions. Machiavelli spoke of mastering oneself before attempting to master others. Though their methods differed, their conclusion was remarkably similar. A person ruled by impulse will eventually be ruled by circumstance. And circumstance has no mercy. It rewards preparation. It punishes complacency. It exposes weakness without apology. That is why true power has never been measured by wealth, or titles, or influence. It has always been measured by restraint, the ability to possess power, without becoming possessed by it. The ability to experience desire without becoming its servant. But this leaves one final question. If temptation is inevitable, and desire is part of being human, how does one become truly unconquerable? Machiavelli believed the answer had nothing to do with eliminating temptation. It had everything to do with transforming your relationship with it. Machiavelli never believed the goal was to eliminate temptation. That would be impossible. To live is to desire. To desire is to be tempted. The question was never whether temptation would appear. The question was, who would be in command when it did? This is where ordinary people and extraordinary people begin to separate. The ordinary person asks, how do I avoid temptation? The extraordinary person asks, how do I become the kind of person temptation cannot command? Those are two entirely different questions. One depends on changing the world, the other depends on changing yourself. Imagine a king whose kingdom is surrounded by enemies. He can spend every day chasing them from the borders. Or he can build walls so strong that invasion becomes impossible. Your mind is no different. Every principle you uphold, every habit you strengthen, every promise you keep to yourself becomes another stone in that wall. Self-mastery is not built during moments of peace. It is forged during moments of conflict. Every time you refuse an impulse that contradicts your purpose, you are not merely resisting, you are becoming. Every difficult decision shapes the person who will make the next one. This is why discipline compounds, not because each act is extraordinary, but because each act quietly changes your identity. Eventually, saying no longer feels like sacrifice. It becomes part of who you are, and identity is stronger than motivation. Motivation fades with emotion. Identity remains. Machiavelli understood that the most dangerous individuals in history were not those driven by emotion. They were those who had learned to command it. Observe the master strategist. He does not panic because panic clouds judgment. Observe the wise ruler. He does not seek revenge immediately because anger serves his enemy more than himself. Observe the disciplined individual. They are not free from desire. They simply refuse to let desire make decisions on their behalf. This is the highest form of power. Not domination over others, but sovereignty over yourself. Because the person who governs their own mind becomes extraordinarily difficult to manipulate. Flattery loses its influence. Fear loses its grip. Pleasure loses its urgency. Even criticism loses much of its power. Why? Because your actions are no longer dictated by the emotions of the moment. They are directed by principles that remain constant. This is what Machiavelli understood long before modern psychology. Every human being has a weakness. The wise do not pretend theirs does not exist. They study it, they anticipate it, they prepare for it. The strongest fortress is not the one with no weak points. It is the one whose weak points are constantly guarded. Perhaps that is the greatest misconception about strength. People imagine it is loud, aggressive, dominant. In reality, the strongest person in the room is often the calmest, the least reactive, the least desperate for approval, the least controlled by impulse. Because true power is quiet. It does not need to prove itself. It simply exists. And that quiet strength is what makes temptation powerless. Not because temptation disappears, but because it no longer finds a willing master. So perhaps the title of this video has been misleading. Temptation was never the real enemy. It never was. The real enemy has always been the part of ourselves that believes immediate pleasure is worth more than lasting freedom. Conquer that, and very little in this world can conquer you. That is why Machiavelli's greatest lesson was never about deceiving others. It was about refusing to deceive yourself. For the person who can master their own desires, needs to fear neither temptation, nor manipulation, nor the ambitions of lesser minds. Because while others spend their lives chasing every passing desire, the master walks a different path, not because the road is easier, but because it leads somewhere temptation never can, to freedom. And in the philosophy of Machiavelli, there is no greater power than a person who cannot be ruled, not by kings, not by enemies, not even by their own desires,